Good day and welcome back to the Vitality Project. I'm Dr. Bob. Thanks so much for joining me today. Yesterday, we paused to give honor to those in our lives who've inspired us, specifically inspired us to healing in our own lives and either recovery in our own lives or supporting us as we've been in relationship to those who themselves are in recovery. And we talked about the kind of support for people that have inspired us no matter what we've been enslaved to. And I want to remind you that we've been using as our working definition of addiction, enslavement, which derives from the Latin root word addictus, which simply means slave. So whether we've been enslaved ourselves to substances or other behaviors or even attitudes, I asked us yesterday to pause and give honor to those that have helped us move beyond enslavement, who've helped us towards liberation. Now, I've been sharing with you these last several posts, major tributaries leading into what I and we have created here at Your Vitality Project. Clinical psychology for one, mindfulness studies for another. In fact, my own roots in mindfulness led me to seek out a holistic approach to recovery, and I talked about that yesterday in our most recent post when I discussed integral recovery based on the work of Ken Wilber, John Dupuy, and Guy Duplessis. I have to say also that my background in mindfulness opened me to discover Refuge Recovery, which is a worldwide mindfulness-based self-help support group organization. And I found this really useful as a complement to my simultaneous engagement in the 12-step group. So they worked hand in hand for me. But there's one more strand I also want to name today, and that's the psychology of Carl Jung, J-U-N-G. That simply means young in German, Carl Jung. Jung was himself instrumental in providing spiritual foundations for the earliest development of Alcoholics Anonymous and the entire 12-step program. In fact, he's mentioned with gratitude in AA's big book, as well as featured in Correspondence with Bill Wilson, which you can find easily online. Bill Wilson, for any of you who don't know, was AA's founding father, and he corresponded with Jung right at the very end of Jung's life in a very meaningful way. Highly recommend looking that up online, that correspondence. Jung, as it turned out, was Sigmund Freud's star pupil. Sigmund Freud is the father of modern psychoanalysis, and Jung was his heir apparent. But Jung departed from his mentor. And I'll have to tell you that is what draws me to Jung, and always has, is in fact what separated him, ironically, eventually, from Freud. Jung believed that spiritual resources could not be divorced from psychological treatment and any vision of holistic well-being. And so on this, he parted ways with Freud, who had very little respect for spirituality or religious traditions. Jung, on the other hand, felt that psychology and spirituality were inseparable. I was so drawn to Jung's teachings early on, starting in undergraduate and then certainly into graduate school, that after I graduated with my PhD in clinical psychology, I spent 6 years in advanced postdoctoral training, specifically in Jungian psychology, here locally, as well as regionally, as well as internationally in the Jung Institutes across the world. That started some 25 years ago. I'd like to come back tomorrow to share some of the insights that I've gained in that very in-depth course of study in Jungian psychology. And you'll see how they tie directly into your Vitality Project. But for today, what I'd like you to do is take a moment to describe in writing how you see psychological and spiritual resources intersecting in your own life, including recovery from any form of enslavement or addiction that you may have experienced. The intersection of psychology and spirituality in your own life. Let's see what comes up for you. Thanks so much for joining me today. Very much appreciate it. I wish you well with the exercise. In the meantime, please stay safe, be well, and come back and join me again tomorrow. I look forward to that. Thanks again.